I want to give a really, really warm welcome to Julien Coustaury to Startup Grind Tirana. So I want everybody to stand up and give a warm applause.
Okay, thanks for the nice welcome. I'm not sure I deserve that, but...
I know you like wine, so I made an exception. I got you the Bordeaux wine. I hope it's good. It's not the one you sent me my picture, which was 1 year younger than me. I think this is 2013 or something, but I hope you'll like it. Okay.
Thanks for the attention.
Yes. And sorry, guys. I know you have to drink water today, but. So welcome to your Tirana, your country as well.
Thank you. It's always nice to be back in beautiful Albania.
So what do you think about the startups you met and the founders?
Well, it's quite good. I didn't know, I had very little expectations before coming here. I didn't know about the scene, and that's why I wanted to come here. So I think it's pretty good. I've met this morning some pretty good ones as well. And some interesting ideas. I think Oficina is certainly something I didn't know it existed here. So I think it's a pretty good start, encouraging at least.
Yes, and yes, thank you Oficina for hosting us. Erkens, you're the man, both of you, Andy as well. This is a great place, and we're outside here. It's a warm September night here in Tirana, and this is the first event we're actually holding outside, and it's windy a little bit, so don't worry. But yeah, Oficina just opened, I think this month, officially. Okay, so this is the first Startup Grind event in Oficina, and it's a great place to be, especially for startups, so we want to promote it through our events as well, and introduce it to the community. So at Startup Grind, well, we always start with a question with all the speakers. So tell us about a little bit about your background, where you grew up, where you study, and yeah.
Okay, well, I used to be French a long time ago. I grew up in France, between the south of France and Corsica. And when I finished my studies, I graduated on the 15th of June. 1995, and on the 16th of June 1995, I was in the plane to go to Indonesia and started a telecom career there. Mainly as I was building mobile networks all across Indonesia, and that was my first assignment abroad, and since then I never came back to France. I've been to and worked in 83 countries to date, hopefully a few more coming. And I was lucky to have an assignment here in Albania, which made me discover this great people, great place, which is now part of my life. And mainly in telecom, really mobile is my background. I was riding the telecom wave for quite some time, and in 2010 I got a little bit tired of it. I was in Papua New Guinea, trying not to get eaten by cannibals. And I say, well, I've had it with telecom, and I started a small startup in the publishing world called Double Recall, and we applied Y Combinator. We never thought we were gonna be accepted there, and we got a phone call at 3 in the morning one day that we're invited for the last stage of interviews. So we made it from the last, I don't know, it was 7,000 applications, I guess, and at that time we were in the last 200, and when we went there we got accepted. So did Y Combinator, spent some time in Palo Alto, kind of understood the ecosystem a little bit, started also understanding the fundraise part of things. I raised quite a lot of money for Double Recall, and I kind of got the taste for that. I like the spirit, I like the mindset of all this, and I started this as a hobby on weekends, doing some investing. After I finished Plus, I just decided to quit Telecom definitely, and just started a new a new career, a new entrepreneurship career by basically having my own private equity fund, and which is pretty much what I'm doing now, except that I have a little bit more to manage. I have another fund from ABC, which we just created, and of course I'm quite active in ABC Accelerator. I think we have one of the Sachet brothers here, which got to know me a little bit during the program. So.
Okay, so you are an investor in how many startups? What's the correct number, if you can remember?
I think it's going slightly above 80 at the moment, but some of those are through syndicates. So I joined a couple of syndicates from some East Coast investors, which are pretty famous investors, which have invited me.
What's a syndicate?
Syndicate is basically one kind of key guy in the venture world. I mean, his name is Fabrice Grinda. You can Google him. He's probably one of the most successful and known investor. And I'm invested in his syndicate. So he has like some investment vehicle, really. And I'm invested in two of his three investment vehicles. So it's not that I'm directly invested in those countries, but I still count them in the portfolio in those countries, in those companies.
So tell us briefly about your startup portfolio. In what industries are you focused with your past current investments? How many successes, failures, or exits do you have?
Okay, I don't count failures because it's too depressing. I just look at exits. I've had two so far. It's quite early in my portfolio, but the exit I had delivered ×7 return. Okay. So it's very early. What I like a lot these days, it changes, of course. I didn't have the same taste at the beginning as I have now, but I'm a big fan of big data. I think one of my best company in my portfolio is a TV analytics company. It's called tvbeat.com. You can Google them. They're pretty good. I do a little bit of cyber security these days. I think it has reached some kind of maturation where the issue is becoming really big, so the pain solved by the companies is interesting. And anything that has to do with marketplace and disintermediation. So, whenever a web platform can cut the middleman, I kind of like it.
So where do you see the startup companies are focusing right now? Like, what are these hot industries? They're like, everybody's going after from the VC perspective.
I mean, it changes a bit, but these days I tend to see a lot of company in the fitness area. I personally hate it, but a lot of companies are trying to tackle the problem of your fitness or the teacher, and I think there was one in the last batch, one or two maybe in ABC batches, and I really didn't like this field. I see a lot of companies, I don't know why, these days having a fitness idea. There's another trend that I see is IoT. I just met a company here doing some IoT. It seems to be a crowded space, but I like it more. I think there's a real problem here being solved. Obviously, big data is still the big trend at the moment. Obviously, as always in trends, you have good and bad things about it. The good thing is, I think, it's very interesting, and they are solving some problems. But the bad thing is that people are doing big data about pretty much everything they can collect. So then, you have the bad side of a trend.
83 countries. Tell us about any past experience you have had that is memorable. I mean, as a professional, I would say. A story maybe.
I mean, I've got about millions of stories, I can tell you, because I did Telecom in the days where, having a mobile phone was really something. It was a luxury and was just coming. So I've got tons of crazy stories. Maybe the most interesting from I'm not talking here overall, but a great experience I had was in Haiti. Obviously, I was there at the beginning of the mobile world, and our company was doing extremely well. I was essentially the CEO of the richest company in the country. And one day I get my phone ringing, and I get a phone call from the president, who explains to me that he has problem collecting taxes in the country, and that we are the #1 taxpayer, and he's asking me if I can help him doing a little bit of PR campaign to help them encourage people and company to pay their taxes. You know, I'm a guest in the country. I mean, President was a very nice guy. I had met him a couple of times, and I said, you know, I'd do that for you for sure. So I talked to my PR team, and I said, look, you know, I think there's a PR lady here. She will understand what it means. So my PR team had no better idea than making me come in front of the TV and radio stations and newspapers with a mock-up check of $10 million. This stuff, and you know, here is my picture everywhere in the media. I say, you know, do like Comcel, just pay your taxes with $10 million, you know. I mean, this is quite okay, just that when I came to Haiti, the chaos was there, and we had just surpassed Colombia and Mexico for the number of kidnappings per day, where we reached 36 kidnappings per day in Port-au-Prince only. And as a result, you know, we of course, as telco player, we put antennas and we sell in every areas of the town, and you know, there's a pretty rough neighborhood called Cité Soleil in Haiti where all the gangs are operating kidnappings. And about a day after we had this beautiful PR campaign, which got me a nice phone call from the president, I just learned that I became #1 target on the kidnappers list. So that was quite interesting. I was living an interesting life in Haiti, and being the #1 on the kidnappers list with an M16 under my bed. They built a special, so my bedroom was basically a jail, so it was barricaded with armored doors and everything, so I had to lock myself up in the evening. My bodyguard was sleeping next to me, and when I was, I don't know, for example, going from here to the airport of Tirana, the equivalent distance, I would have 3 guys with me in my car, 1 escort car with another 3 bodyguards, and my car was weighing 4.5 tons because it was, you know, armored 6 blinded car. So it was interesting. So, you know, that's why sometimes PR is not always good. I'm sure you, Nilda, will know that. But that's just one story. I can tell you much more.
Did they ever try to, you know,
so yeah, I'm getting these questions. Actually, it is a lot of kidnappings, but it's not that professional. So when they see the number of crazy guys surrounding me, I mean, I was more protected than the president itself. So I mean, nobody really. We had one occurrence one day where I stopped in the street for some food, and there was a guy which ended up being a beggar, nothing else, that approached the car in quite an aggressive manner, and the guy almost died because I mean, he hadn't touched my door, that he had already 3 guys, 3 monsters on his face, but he turned out to be not an aggressive guy. So I mean, I felt sorry, but you know, you don't know in those days. But otherwise, nothing really. I mean, it came hot a couple of times, but more because of the situation, the public pressure and all these kind of things. So I mean, I had to be evacuated a number of times just before things would get too much out of control. But you know, that's I guess no pain.
You attended the Y Combinator in 2011. Tell us a little bit about your Silicon Valley story, and how did that experience affected you as a founder?
Well, I mean, for all the people here, I guess the Silicon Valley is kind of a mecca for entrepreneurs, just because you have the 3 essential components of the ecosystem, which is the talent, the funding, and a shark at the end of the food chain, meaning the people that is going to buy you. Obviously, Silicon Valley is nice and is not so nice. I mean, I wouldn't say that everything is pinky rosy in the valley. I found a lot of stuff that I really hated. but you have to admit that whenever you're an entrepreneur in the technology sector, it's quite amazing. Obviously, you find very good engineers to work on your product. You have, I don't know, 1,500 VCs, I think, which are collecting billions to invest in different stages of your development, and more importantly, which I think is the piece that always lacks whenever people want to emulate a Silicon Valley of, so the Silicon Valley of Germany, the Silicon Valley of Slovenia. You always miss the last piece of the pie, which is the guy that is going to buy you. Why? Because if there is an acquisition, that makes the VC happy, that makes the founder happy, meaning that the founder will start another company, the VC will get money, and the loops is self-sustained. And that's clearly very interesting there, is that the cycle for a creation, funding, and exit is accelerated. In that respect, I find it quite interesting. I mean, obviously there are things that are not so nice. I think it's like everywhere, you need to network, you need to have the right network. You should not underestimate that. Obviously for us, we were YC, so pretty much every phone call or every email I would send would get attention of people just because of the YC brand. But frankly speaking, that didn't give me success in this company. In fact, it was a major failure. I mean, not a major, but we failed. It's as simple as that. We raised a lot of money. Interestingly enough, we raised money a lot in Japan. Our product, it was a publishing product to monetize content behind the paywall. I don't know if you remember, but 5-6 years ago, every news website was trying to monetize their content by putting money for people to pay to access online content. And we took 562 meetings in New York to sell the product, and we sold it 3 times. So, it's also clear that YC is not, it helps, but it's not, whatever reason was that there was no product market fit. But it was tremendous experience. Of course, I've met probably the best thing is that I've met some of the most brilliant minds I've ever met in my life, and they were there.
What do you think as an investor? Should the investor try the product of the startup with investors? Like, should it buy it, or you just should see the financial data at the end of the year, or what do you think?
I mean, you have 2 types of investors. You have the hands-off and the hands-on, and I think this is pretty much everywhere the same. I kind of like to test the product, because I have the feeling that if I don't like the product, I shouldn't put our money in. But that's my view, and that's certainly another recipe for success. I mean, I think that there's some famous stories that, in fact, it's a YC company. You all know of Airbnb. And the founder of YC, Paul Graham, shared with us the email he had about Airbnb. And it's very interesting to know that Airbnb has been turned off by investor, I think 70 or 80 times, something like that. And Paul Graham himself had to write to, I think, the Sequoia guy, Jim Moritz, and tell him, listen, those guys are amazing. Put a bit of money and see what they can do, and it turned out to be Airbnb. So, I think that, liking the product, and for me, it's essential, but not everybody has the same vision.
What's your definition of success?
Oh. Do you have another glass of wine?
No, we have a whole bottle.
Yeah, I'll need more than a bottle to answer that. I don't know. And the answer is I don't know. I think it's a bit of a philosophical question. Everybody's put his own targets or his own goals, I guess, and when you start meeting them, maybe you can think of yourself somehow successful, but okay. I'm not sure about the answer.
Why should someone start a startup?
Well, I guess if your goal is to be an entrepreneur, then I think that's the only way to reach it is to start your own company, hopefully in the tech industry. And I think it's very fulfilling. Personally, I've done it, and it was not a success by all means. we commercially failed, but I think it's probably the best experience of my life.
Okay, so the most important pieces of being an entrepreneur, it's being somebody to build a great team. So if I'm trying to get founders or co-founders, okay, interested in what I'm doing, and it's so hard to get anyone inspired in what I'm doing, how do I avoid the temptation to take the first people I meet, you know, and wait for the right people to jump on board? Because it's like, and I've seen it with a lot of founders, it's like they just meet, like, oh, great idea, let's start a company together. They don't even know each other. But the temptation there is like, you have this great product, we're going to make millions, we're going to disrupt this market, we're going to enter the YC, we're going to, you know.
Well, I mean, I think the point you're raising is the point of partnership. Yeah. And I guess it's like in every business or in your personal life, a partner is a very important piece of the equation. That's for sure. You have to consider your partner as your wife or husband. I mean, I can tell you my own experience of double recall. I mean, I was quite old at that time already. I was in my 40s or something like that, and I lived for 1 year in a house in Palo Alto with 4 other co-founders, sharing a room with them. So you know, when I mean it's like your wife or husband, I really mean it, because you have no other choice. If you want to succeed, you have to be fully focused, and part of being fully focused is to live together, actually. So I think maybe as an advice to anyone that has an idea, make sure you pick the right co-founder, because it's really an important part of the equation in the good times, and more important in the bad times. Because most of the thing I look as an investor, obviously, is the team, and how cohesive is the team, and how well they're gonna stuck together the first time they're gonna bump into a difficulty, which is gonna happen for sure. And you know, my biggest fear is that at the first difficulty, the team dismantles. Then you know, I've lost everything, and as an investor, is no good news for me. So team, partner is super important, and every good investor is gonna look at this first.
So what about the product? So many startups, you met startups today, and if you see they're investing in their products and they're not sure when to scale. So when is that break-even point that now let's look for a bigger market? We need to scale right away. So how do founders can understand that point of their company, the product development?
I think you can easily. I mean, there's a scheme that I quite like, and that's why I like to come here. I think if you have some market answers from your local market, where you see that you've made the product people want, so I mean basically you have traction, I think that's when you know that you should try to scale. I think that, you know, for example, the net trade guys are probably in that stage. I think they've achieved quite a lot of things in Albania. What I really liked with them, for example, is that they have passionate user base, and that's very important. It means that they are really solving a pain point, and there are chances that if they solve it in Albania, you know, Albanians they are different from French people, but I mean, at the end of the day, as a consumer, you probably all have the same pain point. They vary a little bit, but the core of the issues are the same. So I think if you've solved the pain point in your home market, you probably have to think about scaling at this point.
But does it mean that when scaling, you need to change your business model for different markets? So it's like, how can you make sure that the business model works when you're scaling?
I mean, obviously scaling means replicating an idea. So, you know, you shouldn't change too much your product to adapt to every country. That's the difficulty of scaling. And you can all look at Facebook. It's the simple and easiest example of scaling. And they started with the Facebook for dorms in the university, and in about 2 days they saw that, you know, they had, you know, completely overwhelming demand, and in a week they started adding, you know, they started with 1 university, which was Harvard, and they started adding 10 university, and they saw that they had demand for 600. And then one guy in the room said, well, you know, that works in university, but why wouldn't that work for people? So this is the example maybe of not so much a geographical scaling, but more a different vertical scaling, and then it became Facebook. I think that, you know, a product should, if it works in Albania, it should scale anywhere else. Obviously, that's the recipe for good startups, if you can achieve that.
I've seen, you know, many startups, you know, love their product. They really totally fall in love with their products. They love so much that they hate people that criticize them. They don't get criticism very well. So what are the implications if something you love doesn't work as planned? What should the startup do?
Well, I can talk about my own experience, and again, I'll come back to double recall here. I think that we had some interesting stuff happening. Is that we were #1 in Slovenia. We actually launched double recall in Slovenia, and we had, I believe, 90% of the biggest newspaper were with us, and we were making good revenue, and we were break even, so we were profitable in Slovenia. Then we went to Y Combinator, and we tried to make it in the US, because, you know, the idea is if it works in Slovenia, it could probably work in the US. As I told you, we took 562 meetings in the US, and we sold it 3 times. So, you know, after a year at it, we still had plenty of money in the bank, actually, so we really had no financial issues. But we met, the 5 of us, the 5 founders. I remember we moved to New York in this pretty cool apartment, and we had huge rooms, and we were on the bean bags just brainstorming. And I think, you know, one of us in the room said, guys, you know, it just doesn't go. And then you always have the dilemma of killing your baby. And that's that day where we discussed, you know, the tech guys looked at us, the business guys. It was 3 tech guys, 2 business guys, and, you know, they asked us the feedback of the market, and I gave them the feedback. I said, look, you know, I'm not the best sales guys, that's for sure, but I mean, out of 562 meetings, I sold this crap 3 times. I mean, there is no market. It's simple. We sold in Slovenia because we had networks, and, you know, the Slovene market is maybe ripe for these kind of things. But, you know, I got insulted in New York when I tried to sell the product. I mean, some people in New York Times, they said our product was insane. It was going to repel all their users, you know, and we had to face it. So I think, you know, you have to test, you have to be focused, give it the best shot. But I think at some point, if it doesn't go, it doesn't go. So you have a number of options. You can kill it. If you still have money in the bank, you can pivot or change it. That's what we did. We had two successive companies after double recall. Or you can just stop, move to the next one, or go back to a job or whatever if you like it. But I think at some point, you have to realize that there is no market fit. People don't want your product. There's no need for you to push it.
When should a startup look for investors, and what type of?
With your investor?
Mm-hmm.
You need to look for money when you need money. The later, the better. I shouldn't say that, but obviously the more you wait, the more traction you have, the higher the valuation you can apply to your company, and the less equity you're going to leave on the table whenever you raise money. That's pretty simple business basics. The relationship with your investor, I think they should become your partner. At the end of the day, they have shares of your company, so they become your partner, and I think that's the best success. I mean, again, it's easy to look at Facebook. When Peter Thiel joined the company as an investor, he put 500,000 in there. And I think that Zuckerberg used Peter Thiel for everything he did thereafter. So it was a real, you know, big team, and Peter Thiel brought him Sean Parker, which was amazing at giving direction to the product. So it's really, I mean, their investors are not going to run the company, but they should always be a sounding board you could turn to whenever you need, and not only money I'm talking about.
If I'm a successful entrepreneur, like let's say I have $10 million and I want to invest them, but not in the stock market, but in startups, because I know it's a hot topic. All of my friends are doing it, you know, but I have no idea how to start or where to start, how to do it. Like, what advice do you have for these people?
Well, the first advice is that if he thinks he's going to invest because it's hot topic, I think he should stay home or put it on the stock market. That's my first advice. So I think he should have two things. First, he should like it. He should enjoy it. He should enjoy the relationship and the mentoring he could possibly give. And the second, he should be willing to make money because investing is not charity, and I'd be lying if I would tell you otherwise. I mean, I invest also to make money. I like it, but I have external investors that are giving me their money, and they expect me to return their money plus something. That's capitalism. That's what we live in. So I think if he wants to invest just because it's hot or it's trendy, I think he shouldn't do it. If he still wants to do it because he likes it, I would advise him to learn. And what I mean by learning is go little with a number of investment. So you can gauge, how the relationship with the founders goes, how it works, how you lose money, how you make money, and then refine a little bit the sectors you like, and go for it with bigger amounts.
So in the end, we're going to have questions from the audience to Julien, so it's going to go back to you. Okay? I'm just giving some time to get some wine if you want. It's okay. You don't like the wine?
I like the wine, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just checking. What advice do you have for those people who have big dreams but are not sure how to achieve those?
God, you like those philosophical questions, after success one. So what's the question again?
What advice do you have for those people who have these big dreams? I've seen this, your motto, go big or go home. And that's why I'm asking. But they want to go big, but they're not sure how to do it. They should go home or what?
Well, I think that in all the people I've met here, they are all pretty young. So life is ahead of them, and they can certainly take a joker in their life and go at the entrepreneurship experience. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's still an experience which they can build upon. So I would certainly tell everybody to give it a shot. That's certainly a very good learning experience and very rewarding, either way it goes. I think that on the other end, if they decide to go at it, they have to go full steam at it. Otherwise, there's no point. So by this I mean that if you want to launch your company and play the startup game, don't think that you're gonna have a job next to it in case it doesn't work. I think you have to go all the way. No
plan B. Yeah.
There's no plan B. I go back to Double Recall. I was enjoying some pretty big paychecks doing some consulting in Telecom. When we started Double Recall, I was still half, and when we went to YC, the other guys told me, you're in or you're out. And I got that, and I left everything. And believe me, I was making very, very little money at Double Recall because we got funded only about 10 months after I started. So basically, I left pretty comfortable life to live with 5 other guys not in one room, in a 3-room villa in Palo Alto. It's not that difficult, but it really means what it means. I went at it full steam, and I think that's what everybody should do if you want to do that. Give it the best chance that you can look back and say, look, I've tried, I gave it the best, and whatever happened, happened.
Entrepreneurship sounds romantic, but we all know it's very hard to do. So how do you stay motivated as an entrepreneur?
I believe that what keeps driving me is 2 things. First is the richness of meeting people and exchanging and building. So I really like ABC, for example. There's these mentorships activities that I have. I'm the lead mentor there in ABC. That's something I really like because I see that people are quite responsive to our exchanges, and I feel a very big self-satisfaction out of that, and I really enjoy that part. Obviously, the second part is hopefully, I'm making money, which, a little or a lot is always helps to have a decent life. So, in short, money and contacts and exchanges.
What is your biggest goal or dream you haven't achieved yet?
You have another one like that?
Just one.
I don't know really. I don't think in those terms. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm quite fine as I am. Not to think that I've achieved anything special, but for my own standards, I'm okay so far.
So in 50 years from now, okay, so when we are all here invited to your funeral, what do you want to be said about you?
Well, I hope people will open a good glass of Bordeaux wine, because this is one of my other passion in life.
Cheers.
So, I hope they're going to have a nice one like this.
Yeah.
After that, I really don't think as myself as the guy that wants to leave a trace. So I have no idea. I hope they'll say I'm a nice guy. I don't know. Generous and kind of giving. I would say that would probably be good.
What is your last advice for entrepreneurs in Tirana here today?
I would come back to one of the discussion we had, which is really, if you go at it, go big or go home. Give it the best, give it the max, see what happens. Life is quite long for those guys. I mean, I've met people here that are probably in their 20s, fresh out of school, full of dreams. So live your dreams. It's never going to hurt.
Okay, so now we're going to take questions. Yeah. Amidado.
So, you said that you worked in many countries. I'm curious why you choose to be Albanian and not another nation?
Okay. I really liked Albania. I come from Corsica, and I remember when I came to Albania the first 2 weeks, I was just wandering in the street of Tirana, and I was just thinking, oh God, I feel home here, and I had the opportunity to become citizenship of Albania. So I would say, that kind of fit what I like. So, I like this country, it's no secret. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why I come back as often as I can.
Questions? Okay.
Hello. All of this traveling and investing in different startups, how does it affect in your personal life, at home and your marriage? Like, do you manage to invest time with your family?
Not really, actually. Well, all those assignments, when I mentioned to you Haiti, for example, they all were single assignments. So I could not bring my family with me for a simple reason that it was forbidden by my company at the time. It was very simple. We didn't have enough insurance for family members. We were paying $2 million a year to insure me and a couple of other guys against kidnappings. And the company just didn't plan for a much bigger budget, so I couldn't bring family members. So the question was not even on the table. Same for Papua New Guinea and some other places. So I think that it's quite a personal question you're asking, but when you have a passion for what you do, you make some compromise in life. Maybe my personal life is, by your standards, not as good as yours or as the one you're dreaming of. But for me, it was the one I liked. So the answer to your question is, well, I didn't have much of a family life. But maybe the comment I should make is that I didn't miss it so much. So.
Questions?
Not so personal questions, please.
Okay, so I used to work for YC Combinator company, and I wanted to ask, what's your favorite thing about YC? I personally like that if you could went to any service and you ask, can I get the thing for free, and they just give it because you are YC, even if you don't do anything.
I mean, the best thing I had out of YC, by the way, YC is quite interesting. I mean, Oni here went to ABC, and there are two accelerators, but they have very different vision. For example, ABC has a very intense program. You are being taught number of things in ABC. Oni can talk to you about it, but it's almost an 8 to 5 program for 3 months. It's very intense. YC doesn't give one single program. There's no program in YC. You have Tuesday dinners for founders and office hours from mentors. That's all you get. So they have a different vision on what to teach. But the best, definitely what I got out of YC were the mentors. I think that personally we had 2 mentors that we used to contact and get advice from on a regular basis. They were Paul Graham, the founder, and Sam Altman, who is now the president and director of YC, who happened to be a little bit, and especially for Sam, close to our industry. And when I was talking to those people, it was very interesting because I already had a pretty good experience as a CEO of quite some big companies in the telco industry. And every time I would go and meet those guys, and this would happen once or twice a week, I would always learn something. And I think that, YC, as I mentioned, California and YC in particular, got me to meet, some of the most brilliant people I've met, and certainly the people I've learned from. I was quite excited at 40 years old that I could still, learn from some people. That is what I like the most about YC. Really, the people were just amazing all along.
Questions?
Which person is your main source of inspiration, and why?
Okay, I mean, I have a few guys I quite like to look upon. I certainly like Elon Musk, the Tesla and SpaceX guy. I think this is a guy that really decided one day to launch rockets and build electric cars and made it happen. I think this is quite amazing. I'm a big fan of Paul Graham, the founder of YC. I think he's probably the most brilliant mind I've ever met. I used to spend my office hours with him just listening and being completely, how should I say, intellectually challenged and impressed by every single word he would tell. I quite like Peter Thiel as an investor. He's quite ballsy and makes strong statements and very, very gutsy investment. That's about it, really. Couple of guys I kind of like to look at sometimes, but in different areas.
Other questions? Okay. I'm sorry.
Hi. When selecting a project for supporting or investing, besides profit, what else do you look the most for?
Well, the end goal should be profit. I mean, as I told you, now to reach that point. So I think that the first thing I'm thinking is, how can you monetize, and eventually, how can the company raise further round, and how can the company be bought and by whom? Obviously, these are the important metrics. My investment theory is that to achieve those goals, you need a team. So this is really the most important thing I look at is First, each member of the team, the experience they have, how good they are, how good I think they are. And obviously the second thing I look is how they interact together. I mentioned earlier that the team and the way and how cohesive is the team is of the utmost important, because the road ahead is long and very, very bumpy. If at the first bump you fall apart, well, you have no team. So I pay a lot of attention to that and how the team interacts. How complementary are the skills of the team members, and obviously how relevant their experience is in the industry and the problem they are tackling. I really like people from an industry that have identified a pain point and have solved it. I think that's always a good sign for a successful startup. But yeah, I mean, the answer to your question is definitely the team. I mean, there's nothing. A good idea with a shitty team is gonna eventually be turned into shit. A crappy idea with a good team might eventually be turned into gold.
Are you able to listen to me? Understand me? Hello? Okay, my name is Dritan. My question, congratulations first for your entrepreneurship. My question is very simple for you. Let's say we are a couple of people running a business. It's not innovative, but it is running and it needs some funding, some investor, let's say, to back it and to go it further. Are you going to support it or not? Thank you.
Well, I mean, that's a bit of a difficult question without knowing, a bit more what you do. But I like to define myself as a venture capitalist. So somehow in venture means a bigger risk. So I would say that all the investors that are doing what I do are probably going to look at something that is a bit more risky, but with a bigger upside at the end, if there is one. So I don't know in what stage your business is, but if it's a business that has a decent growth, but not an exponential growth. More importantly, if it's a business that doesn't have a lot of capacity to scale, or at least if it does scale, it will require a lot of investment. Maybe you're better off talking to a commercial bank. So it's a different type of investment you're going to be looking at, probably more based on a slower growth. That being said, I don't know what you do. I would need to look at a couple of things. How can you scale? How much money do you need to scale? What have you achieved so far? And all these kind of things. Obviously, if your business is growing, you have enough money, and you generate cash from business, some banks will be okay to give you some money, and it's probably better to borrow money. It costs you less in equity than coming to an investor is going to take some equity. So you also have the choice. It happens to many startups. It happened to us in Double Recall. We were positive. We had no money problem because we were successful in Slovenia. And really the question was, why would we need to raise money? Well, as it turned out, is that we wanted to fuel a much bigger growth, and that we thought we could, and we got some money. But, we could have adopted a very different strategy of a slower growth, go to some banks and get, 500 here, 500 there, and start growing them, expanding little by little, and having a slower growth. But that's not the case for venture investors.
Okay, let's Thank you, Julien, for being here. Let's give him a round of applause. And I really hope to see you soon in Albania again. And I really hope you can scout good teams and great ideas and help them, you know, by investing, succeed.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks.